like it's easy to make fun of QAnon. I think it's easy because they are like the weirdest people maybe in human history. I mean, we can say that we've seen things like this with like the satanic panic. You know, back in the day, people would see you walking down the street just like that and would just assume that you like eat children or worship the devil. What's your current relationship to the devil, by the way?
I love some Lucifer, if I'm being straight.
But does Lucifer love you back? That's the real question.
Well, I mean, he did on the contract I signed, so.
Lucifer probably leaves you on red all the time.
Shut your whore mouth.
It's 12 a.m. It's 12 a.m. You have like a cauldron or something. You have some nude eyes. You whip out your cell phone with your other hand, and you're like, "Hey, Lucy, you up?" And
what up?
He's never up.
You're confusing that with the supernatural, which ghosts me all the time.
Oh,
however,
the main man always comes through.
Yeah, my boy Satan's got my back.
That's fine. No. I hope this doesn't demonetize. We'll probably be fine for demonetization. Listen, we're a channel that has 12 people watching it anyway. Who cares? But
true.
I know. But with all of that satanic panic and stuff like that, I feel like QAnon is still unique because of the internet. And the internet has kind of made it weird in a way that's unique to weird doomsday cult movements. Well, Alissa, you are someone who has experience in fringe religions. So am I. Before we like dig into this main feature, which is going to be talking about biases and the baggage that we bring to any kind of decision making, can you talk about the similarities and differences between like QAnon and apocalyptic religion?
Yes, but I'm going to require you to do it with me.
Sure.
In so much as that you're going to list a trait of QAnon, and I'm going to fire back with a trait of a religion that I'm, familiar with. If that's cool with you.
Yes. So let's talk about what are the things that make QAnon QAnon. Their origins are tied to a hugely dramatic event. With Q, there was a post on 4chan. It might have been 8chan. I think it was 4chan though. That was just saying there was an arrest imminent of Hillary Clinton. That's really the beginning of QAnon. And it's funny because this thing was supposed to be like the October surprise. But despite that, the prophecy has kept stretching out long before its expiration date. So if you've got stories of prophecies with rotating expiration dates or
I got a good one
that are tied to big historical events, we can jump in right there.
Okay. So first and foremost, the prophecy that is particularly interesting and I think unique to Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, I'm not an expert on this, but I have some pretty good lived-in experience. So
I'm an expert.
All right, you can back me up on this or you can not back me up on this. But so one of the things about Jehovah's Witnesses is that there's a promised land, if you will, that is, they are going to be bringing back. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm forgetting the name. But so yes, what they're going to do is everybody is going to be restored to paradise on earth. And the theory is that each generation will slowly be brought back to live together so that everybody has someone else to know, right? You're not just going to be thrown out with a bunch of people. It's going to be this process. Now, here's the thing though, is that's not where Jehovah is going to be. And that's not heaven. It's going to be paradise on earth, right? So there we've got this apocalyptic concept of people being reincarnated, if we're being quite fucking frank. But so then the people who are going to go to heaven, and this is the other part that you're talking about, Brandon, which is the shifting goalpost, so to speak, where you originally there was a number of people who, through self-prophesizing, and well, realistically, they have some sort of moment of where Jehovah tells them, "Hey, you're a chosen one," and then they go to their elders, and the elders are like, "Yeah, way." Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Yeah, we approve of this, or no, we can't. And so what we see is, originally, as this is as far as when I was participating in Bible studies, which was that there was 146 million, no, 146,000 people. And maybe I'm wrong on the number.
Yeah, it was 144,000 people. You were very close.
Okay.
12 tribes of Israel. There's some sort of math that goes into that, but yeah.
Okay, so there's these 144,000 people who are going to be able to be granted passage to the heavens. So again, not paradise on earth, but with Jehovah. Which, let's talk about the subtlety of this, which is that throughout people's lives as Jehovah's Witnesses, they say they'll love someone, but they always say Jehovah comes first, right? So it's really interesting to me that there's this built-in A, hierarchy of who gets to go see Jehovah, and B, the fact that you're saying, I might not even see you in the afterlife because I might be up there with my big man Jehovah.
Yeah. Well, I think that 144,000 is almost like, and you're right, it is, you are introducing a hierarchical system in heaven. But I think the idea is that we don't need to be right there with the guy. And really, if you ever look at the Bible, like, being with God is kind of boring. They sing a lot. Like, do you really want to just sing all day? Alyssa, when was the last time you thought, man, I just want to sing all day? The day you met me, but not since then.
I'll be real with you. I love fucking singing. However, I am not good at it at all. Point blank, period. And I learned this the hard way, because when I was a little girl, someone said, Alyssa, you should grow up and be a singer. And I took that shit to heart, and I performed it every single And then finally I had a little bit of self-awareness and was like, oh, I'm tone deaf. I can't, I can't, like, I can identify sounds. I'm really good. I can talk fast, arguably can do all the other things. But when it comes to hitting notes, I miss them every time.
Okay. So other things in common. How religious is QAnon? How much does it, I mean, when we talk about, like, it has like that kind of continually putting off the end times. I think one of the differences, I mean, there's more fighting over whose interpretation is legitimate. The Watchtower Society is pretty hierarchical in terms of who has the authority to understand the Bible and study it and pass it on. But QAnon makes a post, and it's intentionally vague, and everyone gets to wrestle with what it means. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and I think even as far as times go, something you just said a second ago, but down from the common theme of like, Jehovah hasn't intervened in these things because he's been out of the his perception, which is one of the themes going on here. His perception of time is much more different than us, right? So he's saying all these things.
A day isn't literally a day in the Bible.
Blah blah blah.
Times, and through even in the Bible, if you just read the text, like Paul was not talking about prepping for 2,000 years in the future. Paul was like, get your shit together, everybody. Jesus might be back like next week. Like, we have no idea. So, like, a lot of early Christianity was like based on the literal return of Jesus in like the literal near future.
Yeah, and I think, and then even down to, again, they've changed the number of how many people are going to be admitted into heaven, all these things. But so it's these. But so
in certain ways, QAnon is much worse than shows, because the Jehovah's Witnesses can take an L. You know, they can be like, hey, man, we got really excited about the end times. We thought this was going to happen in the 70s. Clearly, we were wrong. And they just say, hey, the time passes and we get smarter. Now, there's a whole thing in the Bible about, like, if you make a false prophecy, you should be, like, brutally put to death. But, you know, we guys kind of ignore that. We put that aside. And all the details, schmeetails. Yeah. But, you know, QAnon is never, there's never any backpedal. There's never any, hey, this is all bullshit. Don't take it too seriously. And there's also, you know, with Jehovah's Witnesses, at least your role is to tut from the sidelines of the world. They kind of tell you don't get involved with any of these things. The QAnon people, they're like, you've got to be ready to storm the barricades if you get the text from Lucifer. When the devil texts you back and it's actually fucking Trump and he says you up, you got to be like, yeah, daddy, I'm ready to go. Where do I go? So
yeah,
that's terrible.
It is. It's a little scary. But I think you brought up a really important point really quick, which was just that that the Jehovah's Witnesses do a really good job of educating their people. Now, if it's accurate or whatever,
right?
I don't want to say
just from a neutral perspective.
Right.
They do a 360-degree inoculation into the worldview. You become part of that cult. You become part of a culture.
Yes, it touts itself in its diversity and its massive colonization, but there is a effort there to protect, again, its people within it, and I think that's and okay, I'm gonna give you a hot take, but there is a strong sense of community and arguably communal concepts that serve to strengthen those people, because like,
I mean, as a former Jehovah's Witness, this is just objectively true. I don't even think that's a take.
I was gonna call them communists, and I caught myself.
Oh, well, that's
it's not.
Boy, you know, well, what is Bethel? Bethel is literally a commune, right?
Right.
They eat together. They do printing together. They do they do posting together. Like, Bethel is a commune. Sorry if people, nobody there watches this, so we're fine.
It's fine. Well, yeah. But it's also, I think something that people don't really realize is how common and how many people are Jehovah's Witnesses. Like there's a large thing, and I think part of why people get attracted to it is because there's this, hey, we're gonna be there, we're gonna help you, we're gonna build you up. Now, mind you, they also get super, like, I'm not saying go join a Jehovah's Witness cult, but there is this absolute concept of community and an attempt at, I'd argue, communal living, like you were just saying. So I think that's interesting, and I think that one of the things that's weird to me about QAnon is there's not such protective measures, right? It's very much a deceptive.
There's no community because they don't. I mean, if you were to all talk to each other, you'd quickly be like, these people are all weirdos. Like, why am I here? You can't. Well, here's the thing. We're gonna. Someone will try. They will try this. Like, there will be QAnon meetups. There will be your local QAnon chapter. QSA will be starting. YQSA. Can you imagine what the fucking YQSA meetings are like?
I mean, arguably, yes, but
do you think they have progressive stack in those meetings?
Oh my God, but have you ever actually sat in a really, truly progressive stack? Because, like, let me tell you, human perception and human bias. I've seen some god-awful stacks of my DSA meetings.
Yeah, that's fucked up. Okay, listen, my
DSA comrades, I love you all.
DSA, I'm looking at you. Anyway, I want to share this one little thing from a Time article about, conspiracy theories in the 2020 election. And really, like, what we got to worry about, in my opinion, is not just 2020. Like, we got to worry about 2024 and 2028 and 2032. when these things like when YQSA is like winning local elections or whatever, and they have like social media graphics talking about like they already have a congresswoman that's going to be going to Congress. And by the way, don't think that the people in fucking Congress don't believe in QAnon, by the way. You think Louis Gohmert doesn't believe, Louis Gohmert, whatever the fuck his name is, he doesn't believe in QAnon? Get a grip. But anyway, by far the greatest delusions I heard came from voters on the right. More than a third of the Trump supporters I spoke with voiced some kind of conspiratorial thinking. COVID could have been released by communist China to bring down our economy. COVID was manufactured, says Maureen Blodern, walking into a Dollar Tree in Kenosha. By the way, subtle, does this remind you of the hit piece on You, Alissa?
I was just going to say, I feel personally attacked.
This broke bitch in the Dollar Tree. Like, goddamn.
What up?
Kind of rude. Oh, I can see this.
There's a half-eaten bagel on her table.
Yeah.
That's not my hit piece.
Disgusting. Anyway, she did not vote for Trump in 2016, but plans to support him in November, in part because he sent Obama a bill for all his vacations he took on the American dime. This idea was popularized by a fake news story that originated on a satirical website and went viral. Listen, like, before we get into the really dark shit, I just want to quickly note that, like, you can't do this in reverse. Like, you can't make you can't reach these people with like left-wing bullshit and hope that it gets to them because their brains are wired in a completely different way.
Well, I'll say this, and I'm going to say something that you say to me sometimes, which is, I think this is where you can't online, but you can in real life. Like,
Oh, well, yeah. If you were somebody like you have, despite the fact that you look ridiculous now, like you have professional training, like you literally professionally deal with people who have either like antisocial or just really quirky worldviews, and you like speak English to them, and it's a long process to de-radicalize or whatever.
Or re-radicalize. I mean, I don't even think, and I think that's what I was going to say is right before we get back into like the beat of this, because we're doing a vegan take. But you know, I think
the beat instead of the beef. I got it. The beat. It's the beats. Okay.
So you know, I know, I'm so sorry. But there is something to be said for the fact that I think we are living in a time where people need to be radicalized and they need to become aware of how extreme our situation is. So I say this lightly, or take this with a grain of salt, whatever the fuck you want. I don't really care. But we do need to make people have more extreme understandings of things, so and radicalize how they think about things. But these terms, once again, are colloquial sometimes, and also are easily co-opted in a lot of ways. And I think that's kind of QAnon's like most successful thing, is its ability to co-opt.
And there's actually, we could talk about some of the legitimate groups that are like child trafficking groups that are like pissed off because QAnon like gloms onto them as like a rhetorical shield or something.
What a world.
They advocate for like incredible solutions to these problems. And they're like, yeah, we actually do this work. And you guys are swagger jacking. But anyway, on a cigarette break outside their small business in Ozaukee County, Tina
class
and Marcella Frank told me they plan, because they're smoking cigs. I mean, there is a certain extent to which, like, you are writing an article and you do want to be descriptive and you want us to be visual. And a cigarette is a strong visual. You know, you see this man and his wife in your mind's eye, they're lighting the cigarette, they're leaning maybe against the wall. And it suggests.
And then who are you painting, though? You're correct in that. And I think that's exactly my point, though, is if you're highlighting that cigarette, not the action. Like, we've all taken creative writing. That was not true. Let me back that ass up. But there comes a point where it's like the descriptors and these ways that they're trying to build the image in your mind's eye is very much, in my opinion, trying to reinforce this idea of, maybe not even class. That was just like the first thing I thought of, but like
Yes.
we typically associate smoking cigarettes with people who are low or uneducated, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So it's what picture they want to paint, in my opinion. Yes,
and it's also informed by the fact that we are reading about QAnon, so you bring your own biases to because these might be like, what weight do you imagine these people, right?
Well,
they could both be very svelte.
It's one of the extremes. If we're being honest, like in my mind, if we're talking about these people, it's either going to be like some skinny motherfucker, or it's going to be somebody that's really overweight.
Right.
And those are just my biases from reading this. Anyways, continue on.
Yeah, okay. They're going to vote for Trump again because they're deeply alarmed by the cabal. They've heard numerous reports that the COVID-19 tents set up in New York and California were actually for children who had to be rescued from underground sex trafficking tunnels. And Arthur and Frank have explained that they're not followers of QAnon. Frank says that she spends most of her free time researching child sex trafficking, and Arthur adds that she finds this information on the Russian-owned search engine Yandex. And of course, this is more subliminal panning because you use the word Russia, and you get a certain group of people. They just go, Russia, Russia, and they just lose it. That's like, to the extent that Russia is like almost a mirror universe QAnon. Obviously not as bad.
There's shit about Russia. It doesn't matter if you're on the right or the left. If you're on the right and you say Russia, it's one thing. If you're on the left and you say Russia, you're like, it's the liberals. Everybody's got their own beef with Russia right now. I mean, I'm not saying shit.
Frank's eyes fill with tears as she describes what she's found. Children who are being raped and tortured so that the cabal can, quote, extract their blood and drink it. She says Trump has seized the blood on the black market as part of his fight against the cabal. I think by the way, Alissa, just a survey between you and me. If we feel like if Trump found like a shipment of child blood and someone told Trump that drinking this blood would give him 10 extra years, Trump immediately drinks it, right?
Without a doubt. Here's the other thing, though. He seizes it without paying for it.
Of course. If Biden wins, the world is over, basically. I would honestly try to leave the country. And if that wasn't an option, I would probably take my children and sit in the garage and turn my car on, and it would be over. Like, here's somebody who's like, QAnon-ness has just driven them
take my kids
to the total brink of like Susan Smith, just utter madness.
Here's the thing that trips me out about all of this.
What trips you out?
There are with most things or movements, there are these kernels, right? These right-wing movements are these kernels of truth and or good intent, right? And you can see that, and you can see where it's spiraled wildly out of fucking control.
Yeah.
But that's how they kind of get you, is this like, look at the poor children. And this bothers me to no end. And that's why I had to say something, which is like, nobody that's saying, look at these poor children, is actually doing fucking anything to help poor children. You know what I mean?
Why don't these guys care about like kids that are in peril right now?
What about the kids in cages at the borders?
Like literally those kids are like documented like on the news. Do they believe that that's not? Or what about like when there's a mass shooting like at a school, and the only reason why we haven't had fucking mass shootings at schools is because of COVID. Like everybody like
had one
in stores, and have we had one already?
We have had one.
Holy shit.
Have had, not a school shooting, but we had a mass shooting. Okay. And then also, I mean, arguably, if you look at the, I'm so sorry that I always have to say this, but if you look at what's going on in the streets right now with the police, Kyle Rittenhouse is also a mass shooter as far as I'm fucking concerned, because he had every intent to be shooting those people.
Let's talk about Well, let's take a break. Let's take 30 seconds. We'll
Yeah.
come back and let's talk about something called motivated cognition. Let's leave the news realm, although this is like just a permanent fact of life now. And then let's talk about what this means to us and how we think about ourselves and each other and shit. We'll be back. Okay, Alissa, the QAnon people we've established, they're terrible. They stink. They're bad. They're terrible. They stink. They're bad. They're dumb. I am smart, good.
Yeah.
I will never have anything in common with the QAnon people. I am not susceptible to propaganda or biases in any way. Here to confirm that is Alissa. Alissa, tell them how great I am.
Well, that's a tough question, Brandon. Thanks for fielding it to me. First, I'd like to point out that Brandon is good, awesome, and wonderful. However,
it's true. All right, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next week. I feel a butt.
No, I said,
not
however.
Like not the usual butts.
Butts. Sorry, I'm a child. Butts. What I was gonna say is I gotta get my drink. Okay. So yeah, we have
this episode sponsored by White Claw.
White Claw.
Of course.
There it is. When you're poor and you can afford the 50% off lemon flavor. Hey.
Go to whiteclaw.com. Use promo code BROKE for 50% off your first order.
If you put broke bish in though, and you do my promo code, you'll get 12% because I'm poor.
Need that extra. But go ahead.
So yeah, there is a lot that our brain does. Now, I want to start off with like kind of two things. So we're going to talk about motivated cognition and how that affects our memory and all how we perceive things. But I also want to talk about something called heuristics, which is how we think of things in a lot of different ways, both in short term and long terms. But we have these different processes in our brain that are ultimately there to protect us, right? So people make a lot of judgments on things and we have to make quick judgments, and we've had to do that. So some of these things are really good. But if you are looking, what the hell are heuristics? Okay, maybe I should.
No, this is good. You're introing it.
Okay, but so heuristics are basically a short, like a quick one-off decision where you have to decide something in your brain, and you don't really have enough time to get all the way up to here to your prefrontal cortex to think about it. It's just like a boom, one and done. I kind of went off on that one. Anyways, so I would think about this. When you are, your whole brain is essentially built to perceive your threats, and your whole brain is processing these things from the very base of your brain. All these different things have different structures and purposes, but at the end of the day, you know, your body was built to keep you safe. And so this is on one part a survival thing, and another part how we get the reinforcement of really shitty ideas, right? So for instance, if I'm in a parking lot and I see somebody running towards me and they have blood on them, my initial reaction might be, oh shit, I should get out of here, right?
That seems totally reasonable, depending on where you are in the country.
Honestly, it's 2020, and if you're outside and you see someone with blood, you should get the fuck out.
Yeah.
But, you know, but there's all these different contextual aspects to this. What if this person is being harmed and they need help, or there is no danger to you and you can provide these helps, right? And so we have different methods of processing thought, and all of them are supposed to work together. But sometimes, and I'd argue, especially with the not cognition, with the invention. Oh my God. My daughter just woke up. 2 seconds.
Okay. This is taped. You're good. This is why we tape.
Sorry. She just wanted to make sure I was still here. I don't even have a car. That's hilarious. So, what I was talking about. Okay, so basically I'm gonna segue from heuristics, which are like the short-term, really quick thought process we have, and then we have more longer-term cognition processes. And that's where we get into motivated cognition, which is like the influence of motives and desires on our ways of information processing, judgment, decision making, and then reasoning and memory. So what that means is almost every aspect of how you think about something, from the very beginning that you think about it all the way until you've stored it in your memory, both short and long term, or those are all theories, so whatever. Right. But throughout every step, if you have something that's motivated, if you're seeking to reinforce a belief, you are not only going to perceive it differently, you're going to think about it differently, and then you're going to store it differently. And then, how we have our memories is that every time you access a memory, you shift it. So like, let's say you have a super, super sad memory. And every time you think about it, when you're really sad. And so then you think about it and it makes you more sad, and it kind of builds on it, right? Same thing with the concept of rose-colored glasses. You have a good memory. If you think about it really positively all the time, it can become something where you think about something as being better than it really was.
Right. And this is like something we go through when we have relationships, right? Like that chemical reaction or whatever of being exposed to somebody for the first time is like, it fucks us up. And we get really excited about it. And that's like part of the process.
Yeah, I like it. They're like, it's like fireflies in a glass jar. Sometimes, or like a Rolodex, right? And the big parts that stick out are the positive and or the negative ones, the really, really strong ones. For those of you who don't know what a Rolodex is, it's the thing you used to put on your desk and sort.
We're old. We're very old.
Man, we don't have any hip young kids with us to like laugh at that. Anyway.
Thank God. Get them out.
Bye, bitches. So the point with all of this is that from the very second you see something, right, you have to remember that from the moment you actually visually see something, you don't see it right off the bat. It has to go in through your brain, cross over, and go to the back to the occipital bun, where there you actually process this image, right? So when you're thinking about all these things, it's really, really, really hard not to have bias re-influence it. And so that's where I'm also one of those people that has a really hard time when somebody says, oh, I did this thing objectively. And you're like, well, okay.
I mean, so many of the things that we think of as like really important to society are things that we have tried. Well, we claim to have tried to be as objective as possible in setting them up. Like, if you were to talk to somebody about the law who's like even a centrist, they would say, well, the law is just our objective system for achieving justice, right?
Yeah.
I mean, doing that, we think of it as like a truly moral and rational system for separating truth from falsehood. And even a justice system that like runs on good faith is just going to run into the problems of our minds and how it's just not possible for us to always come to right conclusions. And for that, you can just look at shit like witness testimonial, eyewitnesses who swear that they saw something that, like, it turns out like 5 years later, it wasn't possible for them to have seen, or it wasn't possible for them to see.
I've got a really good story about that, actually. So a good example of people having, okay, this, saying, I know I saw this thing, right? Is this woman, and then content warning, trigger warning, this involves sexual assault. But this woman was somebody broke into her home. She was beaten and violently assaulted. And she'd been watching her favorite, like her favorite talk show. I'm gonna say like a Dr. Phil equivalent. It wasn't Dr. Phil, but he was a very famous person who people knew of, had a regular show, like Oprah, these types of people. And when she went to the police, she filed a report, she did the testing kit, she did all these things. And then what ended up happening is she said, like, she was like, I know who did this. I know exactly who did this. And it was this person, right? This famous Dr. Phil type person, talk show host or famous psychologist, whatever.
Okay.
And so the police said, okay, we'll follow up with that. They went and they did their thing, and it turns out he had an alibi. He was filming that show live. There was absolutely no way that she could have seen that, right? And what had happened was, because her brain was like, there's so many things going on right now. Her brain chose to focus in on this one thing. And so long story short is that, the eyewitness testimony, which is considered, by all of us, it's something, even just not outside of the law. When you talk to your friends, you're like, hey, I saw it with my own eyes. That's kind of a hard thing. Now, that's not to say that like the scientific method is absolutely bullshit. We should just throw it out the window. I'm not
so yeah, I was gonna say, like, if we can't believe our own eyes, then why not just believe that Hillary Clinton fucking drinks baby blood? Like, what? How do we decide that's not? How do we decide like that? Okay, well, this thing is obviously true, and this thing's not, because you're just trying to break down all of the epistemological fucking walls of meaning here. So how do we decide what's true?
Well, we have to decide where these things are important. This is, as y'all know, should not come as a surprise. I'm very big on prison and police abolition entirely. I believe in restorative justice, and I think it might be a couple of rough generations in between, but that we come to a different thing where these things won't necessarily be as important because of the outcomes which they require of. So that's a very long, far off goal. Recognize that. I probably won't see it in my lifetime. Fine. Most people can't even fathom the concept of a society without having justice. But it is a hard thing, because things like it depends on what we're talking about, right? Are things measurable? Can we disprove it? So the scientific theory, right, is it's tentative, so it's self-correcting,
Right.
and so we have these staples of psychology. I said psychology, but I meant scientific method. These staples of scientific method and research that you seek to disprove yourself. So you only put forth things that can be disproven. So, your hypothesis is going to be something that you can objectively describe, and that's possible, right? If you outline with the common terms of your things, that's fine. Down to, there's all these parameters of the scientific method, but those aren't things that are embodied in our laws and criminal justice system at all. We are retroactive.
Basically, it sounds like you're saying you're welcome to whatever weird belief that you want, but if you're going to base your worldview around a weird belief, it should be something that you can figure out whether it's not real or not, so that you can move on to something that's maybe like a more productive use of your life. Maybe.
I think, yeah. Well, I think it's important for people to understand how fallible the human mind is, because I think it's really pertinent to all the things that people are talking about right now, right? People are talking about race, people are talking about class, people are talking about justice, economics, all these different things. And if we really want to get to having real fucking solutions and reparations for all of these things, then we're going to have to look at doing something totally fucking different, in my opinion. And my opinion, which is built off of way more smarter people than I am, point blank period. So there's also this, I wanted to say, I've seen this uptick in commentary about like facts and reason and logic and knowledge and all of these things. And those are really, really not bad. But I think people have failed to continue to take in, like, a grain of fucking salt here and there, and to recognize that like humans are valuable, people are making these things, and not everybody is trained in the scientific method, A, and B, people aren't being trained. It's not like, you know, that we have such a vast, just like we have such a huge spectrum of ability to even navigate internet and computers and cell phones, right? Like there's such gaps in certain people's knowledge. People are more susceptible. I mean, like, you know, some people's grandmas will still send money through email meme jokes. You know,
Right.
So I get to this point of where I'm like, people really like to believe in this objective view, and this is an objective fact. And I'm not saying that all facts aren't objective, but I am saying that there's this false view from nowhere. It's a viewpoint that none of us can have because we all are human, and subjectivity is important. And I do think that even social sciences need to start incorporating that more, because that's where we get into who's doing the research, who's funding the research, what type of research do we want to be coming out, what won't get the funding, what, you know, it's, and how all those things correlate, you know, and what people fail to talk about a lot is like things like the military academic industrial complex, you know, like Lockheed Martin is straight up the road from my house.
Yeah.
It's less than 15 miles.
And they like to flex. Like if they are near an institution, they try to make sure that that institution reflects their worldview.
Right. Well, so much so that UCSC's slogan, the original authority on questioning authority, which we all know is absolute fucking shit. Check out payusmore.ucsc.com. And but I mean, we literally have a college on our campus called Kresge College, where they blocked off and bridged off their community and said, we won't do any of your research as long as it's related to the military academic industrial complex. That was back in the 60s, and was part of a really bigger movement of things, which really kind of, I think, gave a lot of the groundwork for the things that we're trying to do now. But so understanding how your cognition can be motivated is really important when you're trying to consume media, when you're trying to interact with your family, both online and in real life, because this isn't to say that you can't try and be objective. You know, it's not bad to try.
Yeah. But also for us, I mean, if someone were to say like, listen, where did you get the idea that there was a cabal of blood drinking celebrities? They would say like, hey, we got this off of 4chan. And if somebody else in the family were to say, where did I get the idea of, you know, confronting my internal biases and taking a systemic approach and thinking about where I get my information, they're going to say, I got it from this weird chick on YouTube who is dressed as a goth and this black dude that was wearing a formal suit. So like, is it just, you've gotta, are we all on an island and we have to figure all this stuff out for ourselves in terms of credibility? Or like, what makes us more credible than Q?
Well,
is it just testability maybe?
I think you can look up what we talk about, and you can find peer-reviewed articles about them. You can find them as subjects written by many people throughout, like from civil rights movement to now. So it's honestly, I'm not going to argue that what I'm saying is more right than anybody else's right. But I will say that a lot of the stuff that I talk about is verifiable through peer-reviewed articles, is stuff that I've gotten in academia, and then I also have a fucking degree to back it up. So like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't listen to some random chick that looks like a goth asshole on the internet. Fair enough. But on the other hand, I've got, I think one of my degrees behind me. What
a flex.
Hey, you see those medals too? You see those?
So, and I'm black, and Twitter says you should just listen to whatever black people say.
You have to listen to black people.
Yeah, that's the rule. But also, like, I think it's also important to mention that, like, we're talking about this layer of understanding facts, but also, like, we just had this major scandal around Donald Trump, who knew about all this virus shit being really bad and just pretended that it wasn't.
Yep. And they're still being like, so we've got tapes on this, and then they're like, we know that those COVID tents were from the 5G towers.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm like, I love the energy, but we're on the same page of the wrong book.
We know that like what we want to believe can influence our thinking.
Right.
And like they want to and I think that part of that is once you have embraced a really dark worldview of what needs to be done for society to function, like you're watching all of these police videos and you're like, I've built a worldview that must justify this. Or you're looking at videos from like Iraq and Afghanistan. You're seeing like this assassination that started the year in Iran. You know, it wasn't in Iran, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, there's all kinds of fucked things, right?
Right.
And for a long time.
So how does your ideology like morally justify this without you having like a psychotic break? Like you have to invent an enemy that is evil enough to justify like whatever you want to do.
Well, I'd like to introduce you to the lizard people.
Okay. Sure.
No, but I Brandon and I talk on offline, online, offline, whatever. But we talk off air, and Brandon knows that like one of the things that I've talked about that's been really difficult for me in my education is that I realized that the very, very poor Alissa, who was ignorant, who was borderline, and this is a hard thing to say now because of how polarized these things have become, but was like borderline conservative hillbilly, fucking ignorant white trash. If we're being point blank, period. Ignorant white trash. But at the very same time, fundamentally, I understood certain things to be wrong with the world, right? I recognized that the police weren't a safe option for me. I'd never had a good, I've been very, very inappropriately touched by police before on multiple occasions. And now I walked away with my life, and there's a privilege to that. But on the other hand, I've also been absolutely taken advantage of.
You don't need to add a privilege disclaimer to getting felt up by a cop. Twitter has really fucked with people's fucking mindsets on here. But anyway, go ahead.
But so I think there's this what I know and what I knew growing up as this poor, ignorant, white, conservative person was some things that I see being represented in a lot of low-income communities, A, and B, things that I've now come almost twofold back to where I can recognize there's some truth and some kernels to these things. I recognized things that were wrong. And then I got to this certain point in my education where I was like, no, I was stupid. And then now it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, if we're being honest. Right. But I've gotten back to this point where I recognize that there was some truth. So it does have this capacity to be really disheartening and to be really depressing when you finally get to this point where you're like, I've put in all this work. I've gotten to a level of education where most people who are in higher up powers of positions are either as educated or are more educated than I am. And they're still fucking us over super bad. Yeah. And so when you look at that, there's so many different ways you can be disenchanted. And so what I think, y'all, oh my God, I'm sorry. My kitty is dreaming right now. And it's so cute.
This is tape. We're going to edit. It's okay.
Okay. My cat's just having the cutest dream, and her little stump is chasing something. Sorry. Okay.
Go do all that.
Oh, no, she's right here. We're good. That was it.
Okay.
My cat, not my kid.
Okay.
High maintenance cat kid lady. But so, there's all these different things that it can be really disenfranchising. And this is why I think most of us on this channel, arguably, are always like community, mutual aid, direct action, and praxis, is because not only are those things good for you, but they're good for you. They make you feel better. There's something to be said for helping out someone else and for seeing that, and to be, even down to seeing your own human permanence, if you will, where you can have an effect on your environment around you. And so that's, I don't know if I was going on a tangent, probably, but I think that that's an important aspect to combating a lot of these things, is recognizing and seeing truth in, and being able to find the kernels of truth in the QAnon shit.
Also, like speaking to other people, because you know, you see this article, and what did she do? She fucking posted all day. She was online all day. And yeah, if you're online and you're taking in this weird shit in like an echo chamber, you know, you're taking this weird shit in an echo chamber, like Moses going up to Sinai or whatever, and you come back down with your 10 commandments of weirdness, then yeah, you're going to alienate people.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's where it's, I think, for some people, and why we might have some of the more kind of fringe, if you will, people on Twitter who are, you know, engaging on these things, is because they don't have quite, you know, not all of us are as gifted and excellent as Brandyn and myself with talking. So, you know, but there's, I don't want to shit on Twitter all the way, because I think there is something to be said for this. I know Brandyn disagrees with me on this, but hear me out.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. Like, I know, like, it's good if you like know when to hit the button, like hit the stop button. I'm just saying that, like, if you spend all day on Twitter, your brain will develop a fucking discourse brain, and you don't want to like interact with regular people with your discourse brain turned on, because, and also like ideologically, like just from reading posts on Twitter, you are rifling through so much ideology just on a daily basis that you've maybe had like years of political development in the course of like a couple of months. I think one of the reasons why people like have this ideological pitching and shifting so frequently is because the internet does that. Like, it can expose you to new information like this.
Yeah, I think it's in part that, and if we're being really honest, I think it's also largely in part because of my experience on campus and off campus. You know, but I think it all comes down to positionality, if we're being honest. And I've always had the gift of gab, and so, I've been an avid reader and writing, and so Twitter felt like a more comfortable place for me than like Instagram. I'm not a fucking photographer. I don't have a creative bone in my body, and it's not the good place for me. But what I really wanted to point out is that it's easier to go online for some people, and just go type online instead of going and interacting with people, right? So if we're being honest, like I will always prefer doing canvassing and phone banking and texting than I will going on Twitter to debate something. Like that's just inarguable.
Sure.
But I do think that I've had my fair share of people that I've interacted with who I think I've shifted their opinions, and those who have maybe informed mine. I've made dumb comments online and been very quickly corrected. But I think like everything, it's in moderation. I think that's exactly what you're saying, which is like, you know, don't get brain rot in any capacity, really, or try your best not to. You're muted.
You got anything else you want to add about our biases, the ways that our brains work, those many wonderful ways?
I think we'll do a longer one on it, because we can get into like the different types of cognitive failures, cognitive dissonance, belief perseverance, all these different types of things that really inform that. But I mean, if there's, sorry, y'all, I got warm. If there's any real takeaway, that I'd say it's that, remember that from the moment you see something with your eyeballs, whether it's on the TV, whether it's in real life, any of those things, you know, your eyes have this big optic nerve that's like an X on the top of your head, right? For all of our viewers. And that has to go all the way to the back of your head for you to be able to process it. So everything that you see, you have already had to think about, right? So you've already had to thing.
Right.
And if you've already had to think about it, that means that there could be a potentiality in one way or another for you to have misperceived something. So,
well, let's go all the way back to the beginning of this discussion.
yeah.
Is there a religious terror that comes with that? Like, if you're saying that the thing, our brain connections are causing harmful outcomes or contributing to harm before we can even see something in order to act on it, isn't this like a religious thing? Like, doesn't it just mean we're all sinners and we're all, we're all messed up in some way? And if we have to like take on that kind of guilt or whatever, why bother? Why even analyze any of this at all? And why choose to make it our problem?
Well, it's always important, in my opinion, to talk about these things. A. B. Okay, wait. Remind me what you just said. Because I felt
so basically, doesn't this suck for us? Like, we're doesn't it make us like irredeemably bad, whatever?
Oh, I'm so
we're harming society by having brains that function. Apparently.
No, I don't say so, because what I believe and what is, check out Barbara Rogoff again if you want to go look more into it. But a critical part of human development is culture, right? So we shape culture, it shapes us. That's called mutual constitution. And so our participation in a culture not only changes that culture, but as it changes us, right? So it's a give, and it's all these different things. I can't do an explanation with it with my hands, and I apologize. Okay. But I have some good diagrams. I can't feel my hands when I'm with you. Sorry. So, so the mutual constitution of human development and culture is so important, right? Because we really don't think about culture outside of dominant cultures. We don't think about like the fact that people are in more than one culture. Like, we are all multicultural people, and I mean that in a very literal sense,
right?
Not in the like, I'm gonna go get my kente cloth.
Get that kente cloth out. That's right.
Gotta call my friend Pelosi. I'm just kidding. I fucking hate that woman. Anyway,
she probably has you blocked.
I wish. No, she doesn't. But you know who does? Patty Arquette.
Let's go back. Let's not even touch that today. Let's come back to that.
We'll do a whole show on the people who have me blocked, because but what I was talking about is the mutual constitution. So basically what I'm saying is that all facets of human development are influenced by culture, right? If you go to the United States and you see a 3-year-old with a machete, you're going to lose your shit, right? But there are plenty of places in the world where a child at the age of 3, it can actively use a machete to cut up food for themselves. And there's plenty of instances, that's just the one I thought off the top of my head. Right. But even so much as there is a society, and I can't remember the name of them, I'll come back to them, where their entire system and how they think and orient is totally different than how we do. And it's based off of locationally, based off of the mountains and east, north, south, west. I'll get more into this later because I wrote a whole ass paper on it. But my point is that most science is so weird, right? So Western, rich, educated. I spelled it wrong already because I can't spell the word weird. It's Western, industrialized, educated, rich Democrats. And so this idea of what is normal for human development, like Piaget and fucking all these fancy people that we list for human development, really only have a slice of the thing. And so what we view as a natural progression of human development and these, trajectories and the moral arcs, all of these things are very much based off of what we already know. And so I'm very much a believer in the fact that culture is a huge portion of what we do. We can change our culture. It's not not easy, but we're already changing it as we participate in it. Just as we're seeing gender is a really good example as to how people are changing cultures. People understanding now the difference between sex, gender, and how gender can be more of a performative action. It's how you want to be perceived. All these different things. I could be getting into some difficult waters, but what it comes down to is we have this capacity to shift the culture. And as long as people recognize that power, and people recognize the power of themselves and direct action and all these other things that we always tout, it's not so heartbreaking. And I don't think there's as much of a religious overlap, because we're not trying to guilt and shame people. Well, okay, I can't speak for the choirs, but we have to recognize that not all humans are bad. People are taught things, people learn things from their cultures and the environments they're in. And I argue that what can be learned can be unlearned. And a very good example of this, which Brandon and I will delve into on the next episode, or one of them that comes up, which is the Bobo doll study, which shows that kids will use novel ways of harming this, bouncy blow up doll that you hit. And only if they've had that performance for them. They've seen the action and then they're replicating it, right? They're mirroring it. And they did it in novel ways so that it wasn't just punching. It was like the adult taking the bubble doll and hitting it in weird ways that you wouldn't normally do it. My point being is that if you can program somebody, you can deprogram them and you can reprogram them. And I argue that the people who are already radicalized either need to be yeeted into the sun.
Okay.
Or can learn change. It's one of the two. But these people aren't going to learn change if there's no one there to talk to them.
Go ahead.
No, I think I'm good, but I'm going to say that.
Yeah, let's wrestle with the mechanics of societal change and individual change. Just do it later. Like, we got other shit to do right now. So yeah. It's been a long episode, and I like to thank you for being. Why am I talking to you like I'm the host? And you're like,
you are. Because I'm all over the place. You rein me in.
That's true. What are we? We're just doing this.
We're just two potatoes.
Two potatoes.
Two potatoes in Las Vegas.
So thank you guys for being the plate that holds the potatoes, and for also donating to the potatoes, which is a weird thing to do, but people spend money on potatoes every day. McDonald's is one of the biggest businesses in the world. So you go to patreon.com/notsafe. You send some money.
Do a potato.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for watching. We're not sponsored by Squarespace. We're not sponsored by White Claw yet. But if you're at White Claw, call us.
Hi.
Yeah, we'll send some freebies.
We might even start a cool new episode with a hilarious name. Because I'm Boobs and this is Booze. Oh, we fucked it up. You better clip this.
Oh, I'm Beer.
And I'm Queer?
Wait. I'm Booze.
And I'm Boobs.
All right. Well.
All right.
We'll figure
edit
this out.
that.
All right. we'll get some timing and rhythm for this.
Yeah. Okay. Bye. We love you.